Aloha, siblings. In this video, I'm trying a bit of an experiment. As you can see, the background is not normal because I bought a green screen, and I figured I would make a video while I was trying to learn how to use the thing. And the setting up of the thing is easy. It's just a screen. You just put it up. But it's trying to learn how to which things to check and click in the software, and which dials to, virtually rotate and whatnot. And I thought maybe it would be fun to just, make one while I kind of don't know what the hell I'm doing, and maybe you guys can watch my progress. So I'm just gonna kind of babble on about, not much of anything, I suppose, for a few minutes or thereabouts, and just to sort of chill out on the cool fractal background, because I know I chose that to be for the first background just because I like fractals, and you'll probably see this kind of thing quite a bit just because I like them. And I can tinker with a fair amount of stuff. The piece of software I use is called Fractals. It's among, I guess I have a couple of fractal type software stuff. I don't use them very often, but I've used this one in the past. It's a newer version than what I've used before, but I guess that makes sense, doesn't it, Bill? Anyway, it's pretty fun to use, I guess. It's reasonably intuitive. What we have here is it's a Julia set from a bit of the Mandelbrot set. And I'm not going to get into all the thing because I never really knew that much about fractals to begin with, to be honest. And yeah, I guess that's enough. In any case, this is a Julia set. There you go. You have a little bit of trivia to tell people, hey, look at that. It's a Julia set. Or the graphical representation of one, anyway. Something like that. Okay. So, I'm not sure where I left off. I don't think I was probably saying anything terribly important. But this video is bound to get a little choppy here and there, just because of noises coming from upstairs, and those noises finding their way into my microphones, and I don't want them into my microphones. I want those sounds to stay upstairs and not in my microphones. I wish I could come up with some groovy rap about the fractals, but just because since it's the image there in the background, but I don't have one, sorry. But I will admit that I chose this sort of thing this thing in particular, because I find this sort of thing super relaxing. I find them to be just like, yay. And especially, I don't know if you've noticed, but it just sort of is like this, it's cycling through sort of a palette of colors. And so they just sort of you can watch them come out of the, here, let me go here. You can kind of see over my shoulder there's a spot where there's like a red flowerish looking bit. And it's going to start being not red in a little bit. See, now it's turning into sort of a more brownish kind of orangey kind of color, and then there's like some blue in there, and see how it gets, it's sort of, yay, and then it kind of all just sort of, let's see if I can get over here, you can see a different one over there, yeah, see, to the, by my head there, I guess it's that guy right there, yeah, that guy. I just find it so fascinating the way that the whole thing gets rendered by the computer and turned into pretty little images for us to look at. So there you go. Does that count as art? Well, in a way, yeah. I mean, it counts as art insofar as that art could be found stuff that you find fascinating, you know, in some media form or another. You know, we could turn urinals on their side, right? But it's contextual, like all things, right? I mean, it's not made by a human for a human, right? I mean, I guess you could say that this particular image was made by me to a degree, you know. I mean, I set the parameters on the software and clicked things, you know. But in truth, it's, you know, I sort of just set some bits in motion and click a trigger, and then the, you know, the software really does all the good fun, well, I don't know if it's fun, it's tedious calculation, but it does all the tedious calculation that gets us the groovy images, right? But I'm okay with that sort of technological, whatever this, you know, you want to call it, as long as it's understood that that's what's being done, right? Like, if I was to claim that I, like, hand painted all these, you know, gel frames, you know, for some kind of animation technique or something that, you know, resulted in this sort of background, then that would be ridiculous, and you should, you know, throw rocks at my head, because that would be counterfeit, man. You know, but I think as long as you're more or less clear about what's happening, I think, you know, yeah, do whatever you want, man. I think that kind of plays into a lot of my attitudes about, I think I've talked about this before, but AI and the like. I don't know, did I talk about that yet? I don't know, it seems like maybe I have. But I'll just go ahead and repeat myself anyway. Probably not verbatim, but just, you know, the basic general idea. I don't think it's a bad thing that AI exists, or that it gets used by humans as a tool. If you're using AI to make counterfeit art, i.e. you're trying to make something to trick people into that it's like, hey, look, it's this found Beethoven symphony nobody's heard before. You should buy this thing that I made because I discovered it. I mean, if you're trying to pull off some kind of scam like that, then I think people should throw rocks at your head. Not really, but you get my meaning, I think. But if you come forward and go, hey, look, I programmed this, bit of software, and it can take in information and spit out a result that, really resembles, something that Beethoven might have written. And then you go, okay, that's a clever bit of programming. You're a pretty clever dude. But, that's different, isn't it? The focus then is on the work that he actually did as opposed to the result that the software put out, right? You see what I'm saying as far as appreciation for what the human did. At least that's kind of my view on that. So it's like, I don't mind if people want to use AI as long as it's kind of understood that, like, if you're going to do something with AI and it does all this weird, tedious aspects to your art, and you try to pass it off that you did all the stuff yourself with no assistance from the AI, then again, you're being a counterfeit sort of a prick. And we should take out those I won't say proverbial because there's no proverb, but you know what I mean, our imaginary stones and rocks to throw at their heads. I suppose when it comes to tech, I'm fine with it as long as it's being used in a fashion that's cool and groovy, you know. Don't use stuff to harm other humans, man. That's kind of a basic idea, right? And I'll go a step further because a lot of times people, get into like, well, what is actually harm? And I mean, like, to include things like trick, deceive, scam, that kind of thing. That's pretty crummy. But otherwise, use whatever tool, if it helps you make something better, then, I think it's, to me, it just seems like if you used AI, you would mention it in the same way that, like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to wonder why they always told you, like, why does it matter what they, what it was painted on, the whole oil on canvas, and, they tell you all that kind of info in, the art museums. I don't know. I think it matters, I mean, maybe not. You don't have to engage with it in that manner and think about it in those terms, but the fact that the information is there, and if you have knowledge about it, you can use that knowledge and gain insight, right? Knowledge to gain insight, man. You know what I mean? I had a thing that I thought about talking about for a video, and I suppose now is as good a time as any, yeah. So, just because it's been in the news, I suppose, the whole thing about climate change has been, kind of on my mind. And you think about just, change in general. So it's kind of this whole weird thing of climate change and some little fits of nostalgia that I've been sort of, I don't know how to, but, I don't want to say enduring or anything like that, because it's not necessarily negative. Although there's always a bit of a sadness involved in nostalgia, I think. But mostly for places from my childhood, places and times. The whole space-time continuum thing. And I started thinking about places in particular when I was a kid and the kinds of things I would do. When we weren't in school, so on vacation or breaks or that, that kind of thing. And most vacations, my sister and I spent our time off from school with my mom's parents, because they had this really cool house down in La Mesa. It was, on a good bit of land. They had a fruit tree orchard and lots of space for, kids to run around. And there was, canyons and gulches and trees and sticker bushes and, all kinds of stuff. But San Diego was always warmer than it is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I think that's still true today, although maybe not quite as big an extreme anymore, I don't think. I haven't actually crunched the numbers, but it feels like it to me that it's gotten warmer up here in the Bay Area than I remember as when I was a kid. Because again, the whole nostalgia thing, like I remember when we were on break, and sometimes we didn't always go to San Diego. But summers here, the warm, were never quite as warm as San Diego. You know what I mean? It was always just a little bit warmer, and for longer, for the part of the year, right? It started getting warmer earlier in the year and staying warmer much later. So it seems like, over time, I don't know whether I'm imagining it or whether it's just, me witnessing in some small way an aspect of climate change insofar as that it feels to me now like the Bay Area and Castro Valley is a lot more like what I remember La Mesa being like, say, back in, instead of, this is 2024, so 1974, right? You know what I mean? That seems, I don't know. It could be, maybe my memory's off and all of that. Like I said, I haven't gone and tried to look at any numbers or anything. But it just seems that just the way the air feels, and I know that there's been at least some change in the weather here in the Bay Area, because the fog is nowhere near as pervasive as it once was. The Bay Area was once a pretty foggy place. San Francisco Bay Area, the mouth of the bay in specific, because it was sort of a famous thing about San Francisco, lore, is that there was all kinds of explorers from various parts of the world, notably, Spaniards, Russians, British, and they were all going up and down the California coast, just, looking for stuff and whatever. And several of them went past the mouth of the San Francisco Bay several times without ever even knowing that there was a bay there, because there was so much fog so frequently that they just went right by it, just figuring there was just more cliffs in the fog, nothing over there to look at, right? Anyway, I don't remember how long it was supposed to have taken, but it was supposed to be an embarrassingly long amount of time. And the point of it being that it's not that they were lousy sailors, but that the fog was that frequent and that dense and all of that. So, yeah. But, yeah, there doesn't seem to be as much fog as there once was, like when I was a kid. Another thing that I was thinking of that kind of is in line with the nostalgia and the changes of things, although maybe not as much about the weather stuff or the climate stuff, but just, nostalgic stuff about stuff you did when you were a kid, There was a nature sort of preserve kind of thing here in Hayward, Hayward's just next door to Castro Valley. And for a long time we lived in Hayward. But Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, which they just call HARD, so I guess they leave out the end parks, so it's just Hayward Area Recreation District, I guess. But it's always recreation and parks, but I don't know why I had to go into all that. But it's the area they take care of all the parks. And one of the parks is the Sulphur Creek thing, and there's a little menagerie, I guess, of various animals. Lots of them are wild animals. Some of them are rescues that are injured to the place that they need to stay there permanently because they need care because they'd never survive on their own in the wild. You know, like birds with badly broken wings and that kind of thing. Abandoned tortoises, there were several of those. Actually quite a few just abandoned pets in general, stuff that would be like various lizards and the like. That was a common one. The tortoises and the lizards. I'm trying to think. I think there must have been other stuff that was, more exotic, but nothing's coming to mind right now. And also just animals that, get trapped in somebody's yard, right? It's got some skunk and it, gets stuck in somebody's yard and it gets hurt because it gets caught in the fence or something, right? And so those ones, they tend to just nurse back to health and take them out in the woods and let them go again, right? But there was the reason I bring it up is because where this sort of, it's a park, but it didn't really have a playground. It just had these little buildings and these little walkways where you would, just different aspects of the menagerie were in different buildings, and parts of the buildings where you couldn't really get into because they were where they were doing the work, right, of caring for the animals. And then there was also part of it where there was an education center, so that you could do these programs through the park. Well, you can't, I don't know anymore, maybe, yeah, probably. I'm sure the budget has been shrunk. It started getting shrunk back when I was younger, but anyway, through the park district you could do these education programs like after school things or during, school breaks and all of that. And it would, they'd take you on these various nature hikes and, point it to various deer and squirrel and critters and birds and whatever that, lived in the area. And it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. But when you were going around on the walks for the hiking trails, there was always this sort of smell that was this rich, moist smell. It wasn't exactly like, petrichor, I think is the word that's for the smell that's after rain. It's not exactly that kind of smell, but something in that kind of ballpark where you can tell that there was water somewhere just recently kind of thing. And it's, entirely due to the fact that it was, trees and stuff around, right? There's moisture in the air because of all the green trees and whatever, right? And there still seems to be a fair amount of trees and stuff, although not as much. It seems like stuff is a bit drier than it used to be and less lush. So that kind of goes in line with the climate change observations I seem to have been making. I don't know. Again, I might be just exaggerating all of this in my head. But nonetheless, it's brought back some weird childhood memories and whatnot and associations. One thing that just came to mind is that when we stayed up here in the Bay Area for vacations, we would mostly just, be hanging out with our friends, playing with our friends. And then if we were doing any sort of like day trips or something like that, that they would typically be educational in nature. Like Mom took us to museums a lot. Although one of those was the Exploratorium. That and the California Academy of Science, both of those are pretty cool. Especially if you're a kid. Kids like animals and gadgets and stuff like that, so. Yeah, the the California Academy of Science would be more about the natural history sort of thing, as the exploratorium was more like that physics and electronics, gadgetry stuff, for kids to experiment with, to learn about. Pretty groovy stuff. And then, of course, she took us to art museums and the like as well, from a pretty early age, actually. But when we went down to La Mesa, down in San Diego County, that's when we went to the beach or to the zoo. San Diego Zoo is a fantastic zoo. I don't know if it still is, but the whole time I lived down there or stayed down there or visited when I was a kid, it was always a really, really incredible place. Fun and just amazing to, spend time in, especially as a kid. But anyway, we'd do the beach, the zoo, of course SeaWorld, which it breaks my heart that those places have such a bad track record of treating the animals so poorly. Because when you're a kid, it's just fun, right? You just, this is such a beautiful, fun experience. And then to kind of have it marred by, I didn't realize that they weren't being nice to the creatures. Yikes. And I guess it stands to reason, right? It's just making them do stuff that they'd probably rather not be doing, right? You're going to have to induce that behavior somehow. Anyway, I guess they're supposed to be getting better about that stuff, and I don't know exactly how bad San Diego would have been compared to other places, but it's just the whole industry seems to have gotten a bit of a black eye, so it kind of bugs me. But nonetheless, why I'd get on all this downer stuff, Bill. But when we were kids, right, that's what we would do, the SeaWorld, the zoo. Oh, there was also the Wild Animal Park, which was same, it was part of the zoo, same organization. And like I said, the beach. Yeah, that was that. Of course, we had family down there, so various relatives, aunts, uncles. My dad's parents lived down there. Well, his mom and his stepdad. His dad, my grandfather, also a William. He died when I was 3, I think. 3, maybe 4. I don't know. I'll have to double check that with Dad. Seems like he and I were just talking about that just recently. Anyway, so I hope that my little morose meanderings and wanderings and whatever has been reasonably amusing and relaxing and the like for you guys. I'm hoping to have more actual interesting stuff dialed in when I get to use when I learn how to use the green screen effect better. But I figured, hey, there you go, this is at least a crack at it. And it gave me something to do for this week's video, and I've been getting behind. I gotta work on that. In any case, yeah, so I don't know if I'll get this out tonight. It's already a day late, but well, either you guys will forgive me or you won't. In any case, aloha, siblings.